My heels clicked against the marble floor of my office, the sound echoing softly in the vast, glass-walled space. I paused for a second by the window, the sunlight glinting off the skyscrapers outside, and adjusted the cuff of my silk blouse. There was a calmness in my reflection that I knew no one at home would recognize, the quiet strength I had cultivated after years of proving everyone wrong. Then my phone buzzed. I glanced down, a group chat notification for my family. Typical. They probably hadn't even noticed my recent feature in Forbes. But one message made me stop cold. Heard your little plan is taking off, can we talk? A smirk curved my lips. Little plan? That's what they called it when I first pitched it. Impossible, they said. Waste of time. Even my closest friends had raised eyebrows. But now, as I sipped my lukewarm coffee, I felt the full circle of irony. I let the buzz of the city seep through the glass. My office smelled faintly of jasmine from the diffuser. My fingers traced the leather edges of my desk, and I let the memory of their laughter linger in my mind, just long enough to savor the taste of quiet victory before answering the call. I remember that day like it was yesterday, though it feels like another lifetime. I was 23, sitting at the kitchen table in my tiny apartment in Brooklyn, my notebook open and my hands shaking from a mix of excitement and fear. My dream was simple, at least to me, a small boutique that would redefine the way people thought about sustainable fashion. But when I told my family, my dad, Richard, and my older brother, Jason, their laughter nearly drowned out my words. "Lexi, you're dreaming," Dad said, shaking his head. "You're brilliant, but this is a joke." Jason smirked, scrolling through his phone. "Yeah, nice plan, sis. Maybe try selling lemonade first." The sting of their dismissal hit me harder than I expected. My throat tightened, and I had to swallow hard to keep my voice steady. I remember clutching the necklace my grandmother had given me, the small, gold charm shaped like a leaf. "This leaf reminds you to grow wherever you're planted, even if the soil seems impossible," she had said the last time I saw her. That tiny charm became my anchor. When my brother and father walked out, shaking their heads in disbelief, I stayed at the table, staring at the page filled with my sketches, budgets, and plans. Every scribble felt like a rebellion, a quiet defiance that only I understood. I started calling local suppliers, sketching designs at odd hours, and teaching myself the business side of things online. The world outside my apartment was cold and dismissive, but inside, with that gold leaf around my neck, I felt a spark, small, flickering, but alive. That night, I made a vow. No matter how many times they laughed, no matter how impossible it seemed, I would build it my way. If the world thought I was naive, let them. I had something stronger than money or experience. I had conviction. And as I closed my notebook, the city lights twinkling through my window, I whispered to myself, "Watch me." I rented a tiny studio in Manhattan, its walls bare except for a whiteboard I plastered with goals, deadlines, and affirmations. Nights blurred into mornings as I stitched samples on my grandmother's old sewing machine, balanced spreadsheets on my laptop, and fielded supplier calls with a nervous excitement that never quite left my stomach. Every time a package arrived with fabric I had ordered months ago, I felt a quiet thrill, like the universe was finally giving me a nod. It wasn't easy. I burned through savings faster than I anticipated. Some nights, I cried into my pillow, wondering if I had made a colossal mistake. But I also had moments of triumph. The first boutique owner who agreed to carry my line, the first sale that actually made a profit, the first time a customer sent a photo wearing my design. Each small victory lit a fire inside me that no mockery could extinguish. And then there was Olivia. She was a seasoned fashion consultant I met at a networking event. She had sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, but she believed in me in a way I hadn't believed in myself. "Lexi, your designs have soul," she said, handing me a cup of coffee that smelled faintly of roasted almonds. "But soul isn't enough. You need structure, strategy, discipline. And you've got guts. That's rare." With Olivia's mentorship, I learned to negotiate contracts, manage inventory, and pitch to investors without trembling. I stayed quiet about my progress at home. Every time Dad or Jason called, I kept my updates vague, never revealing the real strides I was making. Social media became a polished, minimal front, enough to show engagement, but never the magnitude of what I was building. Months turned into a year. My little boutique grew into 3, then 6. I started hiring talented women who had been overlooked in the industry, paying them fairly and mentoring them like Olivia had mentored me. By the time I signed my first national distributor, the mockery of my family felt like a distant echo. I carried my grandmother's gold leaf around my neck every day, a silent reminder of who I was and why I refused to give up. I can still recall the late nights when doubt crept in, whispering, "Maybe they were right. Maybe you can't do this." But the leaf gleamed softly against my chest, and I'd roll my shoulders, sip my coffee, and tell the city skyline through the studio window. "Watch me. I'll show you." It wasn't just a business anymore. It was a statement, a testament, a life I had carved out despite every sneer and every doubt. And the world didn't just notice. It began to respect it. The knock on my office door startled me. I hadn't expected visitors today, not from home at least. I glanced at the clock. 3:17 p.m. My assistant, Jenna, peeked in, a hint of worry on her face. "It's your family," she said. "Dad and Jason. They're here." I felt a flicker of amusement. They probably expected me to be buried under rent notices or empty promises, the struggling little sister they had always doubted. Instead, they were about to walk into a different reality entirely. I took a slow breath, smoothed the silk of my blouse, and walked toward the lobby. The moment they stepped inside, I let them take in the scene. My office, sleek and polished, with abstract art lining the walls, a grand oak desk polished to a mirror sheen, and sunlight bouncing off the floor-to-ceiling windows. Books on entrepreneurship, leadership, and sustainable design lined the shelves. My 3 awards from industry associations gleamed subtly from the corner. "Lexi," Dad's voice was cautious, hesitant. Jason's smirk was gone, replaced by something tighter, uncertain. I gestured toward the leather chairs. "Please sit," I said softly, letting the silence stretch just long enough to give them a taste of suspense. This place, it's wow," Jason muttered finally, eyes darting around. I smiled, leaning casually against the desk. "Yes, it's my office. And these," I gestured to the awards, "are for the company I started alone, from a tiny studio in Brooklyn, using the last of my savings and a lot of sleepless nights." Dad's face paled slightly. "Lex, you mean the boutique you were joking about?" I tilted my head, letting a small laugh escape. "The boutique you laughed at, the impossible plan you called naive? That boutique is now a global franchise. We have stores in 5 states, online sales in 12 countries, and a network of over 100 employees." They froze. Jason's hand fumbled with his phone, as if he might Google it in disbelief. I thought it was just a hobby," he stammered. I shook my head. "It was never a hobby. And yes, it's mine, my vision, my execution, my risk. The little leaf my grandmother gave me? It reminded me that growth often happens where no one believes in you. I grew. I didn't wait for approval." For a long moment, silence filled the office. The sunlight hit Dad's face in a way that made the lines of worry and regret visible. Jason's jaw was tight, his usual arrogance replaced by uncertainty. Then I leaned forward slightly, my voice steady and deliberate. "I built this without your support, without your approval, and without your understanding. And now you know the truth." The weight of disbelief hung in the air, tangible. Dad swallowed hard. "Lexi, I held up a hand. "Save it. I'm not here to hear excuses. I'm here to set the record straight. I am not a child anymore. I am a business owner, a leader, and a woman who trusted herself when no one else would." Jason finally met my eyes. "I didn't know you had it in you." I let the silence linger one more heartbeat. Then, softly, but with iron beneath the velvet, I said, "Now you do." I leaned back in my chair, letting the quiet authority settle around me like a cloak. For the first time in years, I felt completely in control, not just of my company, but of the narrative that had once defined me. Dad and Jason were still standing, unsure, their eyes flicking between me and the office that screamed success. "I'm glad you finally understand," I said, my voice calm but unwavering. "But understanding doesn't mean everything resets. I've built this life, and I won't allow old patterns to creep back in. If you want to be part of it, truly part, you'll need to meet a few conditions." Dad swallowed, nodding hesitantly. Jason, still tense, looked like he was about to argue, but I raised a hand. "No interruptions. Listen first." "Dad," I began, my tone firm but compassionate, "if you want a relationship with me now, you need to start respecting my decisions. That means no unsolicited advice, no judgment on my choices, and no comparing me to the past. You'll also need to support your own dreams. Find something that excites you beyond criticism." His eyes filled with a mix of shame and relief. He nodded, tentative but willing. "Jason," I continued, turning my gaze to him, "you've mocked ambition and laughed at hard work for years. Now I want you to explore something meaningful, something you can truly take pride in. And you will apologize, not just in words, but by showing respect for the people who are working alongside you." He shifted uncomfortably, but remained silent. "And both of you," I said, my voice softening slightly, "you need to shed toxic habits, comparing, doubting, undermining. Growth requires honesty, humility, and a willingness to change. I'm not punishing you. I'm setting the terms for a relationship built on respect, not fear or judgment." The gold leaf around my neck caught the sunlight streaming through the window. I touched it lightly, a reminder of how far I had come, from trembling hands and whispered doubts to standing tall in my office as the architect of a thriving global franchise. "I'm giving you a choice," I said, leaning forward. "You can rise to meet these standards, or you can remain outsiders to my life. I love you, but love doesn't mean you get a free pass to disrespect me or my journey." Dad's eyes glistened. "Lexi, I will do it. We'll try." Jason exhaled sharply, finally allowing the tension in his shoulders to ease. "Okay. I'll try too." I smiled faintly, a mix of pride and quiet satisfaction washing over me. The power dynamics had shifted. For the first time, I was not the girl being laughed at or dismissed. I was the woman who set the terms, and they had to meet them. And in that moment, I realized that empowerment wasn't about revenge or proving them wrong. It was about establishing boundaries, demanding respect, and creating a space where growth, my growth, and theirs could finally thrive. Months passed, and change was slow but steady. Dad had started volunteering at a local community center, something he had always joked he'd never do. He called me sometimes just to share small wins, a new class he'd taught, a project he'd helped organize. Jason found his own path too, diving into graphic design and freelance consulting. He sent me his first completed portfolio, and I could hear pride in his voice, softening the echoes of years of mockery. I watched them grow, and in the quiet moments, I felt an unexpected warmth. It wasn't perfect. Our relationship still had cracks, reminders of old habits, but the cracks were being filled with effort, honesty, and respect. And I realized that my grandmother had been right all along. Growth could happen anywhere, but only if you nurtured it, protected it, and believed in it, even when no one else did. The gold leaf necklace still rested against my collarbone, its edges worn smooth from years of carrying it everywhere. I traced it lightly as I stood by my office window, looking out over the city that had witnessed my journey from whispered dreams to international success. The skyline shimmered, but it felt more intimate now, a reflection of my own path, hard-won and luminous. I thought about every night spent alone, every skeptical laugh, every sleepless hour. I felt the weight of those moments, but I also felt the power of having turned them into something extraordinary. I had not just survived their doubt, I had transformed it into fuel. And as I watched a delivery truck pull up to the flagship store of my franchise, knowing that designs I had sketched in that tiny Brooklyn apartment were now being worn across the country, I felt a quiet, unshakable pride. I whispered to myself, a soft but deliberate mantra that had carried me through everything. They mocked me, and I grew. I built my world. I am enough. I am everything I said I would be. And for the first time, I let myself smile without restraint, not out of triumph, but because I had earned this life, and I had earned me. Strength, independence, grace. All at once, wrapped into one quiet, perfect moment of victory.